Hi guys, well, the second episode of Ahsoka has premiered, and it is of course time to talk about it. Spoilers will follow in this review, so if you haven't watched the episode yet, please do so before viewing this review. Unless you want to be spoiled, which in that case, do what you want. But there definitely will be spoilers in this review. I know I said that last time, and then there ended up not being that many spoilers, but there's definitely going to be spoilers in this one. We open the episode with a training session between Ahsoka and Sabine, where we get a little bit more clarification on Sabine's relation to the Force, which apparently she doesn't seem to have any. At least not any that can be seen, or hasn't been unlocked yet. This is an intriguing concept I don't feel like we've really seen in Star Wars before. It's kind of rewriting who can be a Jedi and who can tap into the Force, which is interesting. I feel like there are two ways this could end. The obvious choice would be that in some important moment, Sabine will discover how to tap into the Force, but there is also the option in which Sabine might decide she doesn't need to be a Jedi and takes elements she learned from being a Mandalorian and the Jedi culture to be her own person. Like I say, it could go either way, and I am not sure which one I would prefer. They would both be good, honestly, written right, and I trust Dave Filoni to do the right thing. Maybe even something else entirely I haven't thought of. Following these scenes of Ahsoka and Sabine on the ship, we go back to Hera on another ship as she tries to convince Mon Mothma and the rest of the Senate Committee to give her a squad of ships to follow them to Cetos and stop Morgan Elsbeth. Unfortunately, as according to the Senate, she doesn't have any actual evidence, they turn her down, much to her frustration. I kind of like between what they're doing in The Mandalorian and what they're doing here with the New Republic, it's kind of explaining how they could fall. When the sequel trilogy came out, I did wonder what happened in between the Republic and the First Order, and how it could rise up, and Filoni is doing a good job of explaining it. With the complacency and almost arrogance of the New Republic, it's no wonder they didn't last. While I think it's probably too soon in the timeline to see the rise of the First Order, I do wonder if we will see the fall of the Galactic Republic by the end of Dave Filoni's film. And if so, did something else come between, or did it just take that long to completely infiltrate the New Republic to form the First Order? While it was cool to see Mon Mothma and the other senators, what came after was almost more exciting to me when Hera stepped outside to see her son Jason, who apparently is known for causing a lot of trouble with Chopper, which isn't that surprising. And one of the most important questions this episode had to answer, in fact, was answered in this scene. Of course, I'm referring to the hair. What color was the hair? In case you hadn't heard, or you aren't a Rebels fan, in Rebels, when we see Jason at the end, at the epilogue, he has green hair, like he does here. But a while back, there was a Lego set reveal from this series, which contained a minifigure of Jason. Was the Lego set wrong? Because it is green, it's just like I say, a little more subtle than it was in Rebels, which I kind of like. I personally was not too fond of the bright green in Rebels. It just felt a bit silly and cartoonish to me. I mean, I get why they did it, I think. Like, his mother is green, and I guess he needed to look like a cross between the two parents. But I'm not sure how that makes sense biologically. I also like the theory out there that it's not really green. Sabine just dyed it. Maybe she still dyes it from time to time. Who knows? But I like that better than his hair just being green. I also found his comment about wanting to be a Jedi interesting. Considering his father was a Jedi, it is very possible he could be Force sensitive. So why hasn't Ahsoka begun to train him? And also I wondered, why didn't Hera... It seemed like that would be a perfect opportunity for them to throw in a reference to Kanan. Like, why didn't Hera say something like, just like your father? Well, I have a theory about that. Perhaps she doesn't want him to be a Jedi. Perhaps maybe since she grew up, as she said, fighting a war her whole life, she doesn't want that sort of a life for her son. Perhaps even ending up sacrificing himself like his father did. Which, that disagreement could, I suppose, lead to some interesting conflict down the road for these characters. Her not mentioning his father makes me wonder, does he even know his father was a Jedi? Is she keeping that from him because she doesn't want him to follow in that same path? Interesting. I hope we see more of these characters down the road and maybe get to explore that dynamic a little bit. Anyways, after Hera's request is denied, we rejoin Ahsoka, Sabine, and Hu Yang as they arrive at their destination. Of course, their arrival has been expected, and we get what starts out as a kinda typical Star Wars space battle. What was new, however, was that pretty cool scene of Ahsoka putting on a spacesuit, going out on the ship, and defending them with her lightsabers. I have to hand it to you, Filoni. That was a pretty great idea. Felt like something straight out of the Clone Wars. After this cool epic space battle, and after their ship is fixed after being damaged in the fight, and after we see several of the enemy ships go down, we get another really cool scene when they realize there are Purrgil in the upper atmosphere of the planet. The visual effects here are stunning. I love this trace through the Purrgil. It just looks so cinematic. After they land on the planet, Sabine has a bit of a emotional reaction to the Purrgil, saying she hasn't seen them since the day Ezra went missing. This leads to Hu Yang revealing that there are records of a Purrgil migration path in the Jedi archives, indicating this is probably the path Morgan Elsbeth intends to follow to find Thrawn. Speaking of Hu Yang, I don't think I mentioned how much I enjoyed him in this episode. The other episodes too, actually, but especially this one. The writing is just really smart and witty, and David Tennant's delivery is spot on. Speaking of which, I was listening to a podcast earlier, can't remember which one, sorry, and one of the hosts called him Dr. Hu Yang. As a Whovian, I found that pretty hilarious and just thought I'd share it. Dr. Hu Yang, very fitting. Anyways, as this is all going on, Baylan Skoll sends troops into the forest to find Ahsoka and Sabine, which honestly kind of surprised me. I didn't look at the runtime beforehand, and this was a pretty short episode. Not counting credits, it only comes in at about half an hour. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, as it shows they don't have to hold to a specific time limit. That's something I like about streaming series. With some longer television shows and stuff, sometimes it feels like they have to pad it out to make it longer and put some unnecessary stuff in there. But since they're not held to a specific time limit, they can just do what they need to do, make it a good tight episode like this one, and make it more enjoyable for that reason. And I really enjoyed this one. So far, I'm pleased where the series is going, and I can't wait for next week to watch and review the next episode. But let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Are you enjoying it? And again, I think I said this last week too, but if you are someone who has not watched Rebels, I'm particularly curious to see what you think so far. There is a lot in this series that comes from that show, and it is kind of basically season 5 of that show, and if you haven't seen that show, why haven't you? It's really good. But yeah, I'd be curious to know your thoughts and the thoughts, of course, of all those who did watch Rebels. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will see you later. Goodbye.